All right. Well, welcome everybody to yet another episode of the Data Chronicles. My name is Ed, also known as the Dad Hat. All right. So, guys, as you guys already know, last episode, a couple of episodes, I have done where we are going into having a person who is in a different sport than the one I love, which is baseball. We had our good friend Mike Sellers of the Up to Chat podcast do a little bit of training, training me into what is called tennis. That went, I don't know how that went. But anyways, today I got a good friend of mine who is used to be a semi-pro athlete in the world of cycling. And she is going to teach me all about this. And then I will probably retain none of it, and then I'm going to feel bad about myself because I don't have to rewatch the episode. So that's a good thing that it is recorded. So for all of those of you that are watching, thank you so much. Make sure that you go on the YouTube channel and hit the like, and go ahead and make sure that you subscribe as well. But now that we got that out of the way, Katie, how are you today?
I'm good. Hopefully, I'm exciting enough that you'll remember something out of this episode.
No, I will remember everything because I watch the Tour de France. I watch it every time. I was telling a friend of mine that I was having, I was going to have you come on, and they're like, "Oh, that's cool." I'm like, yeah, because I watched the tour. I even watched the Tour of Down Under, the Australian one. Those are exciting stuff. So I want to know, from your point of view, someone who does the. I'm sure you still, get your bike out and all that.
Yep.
I want you to teach me about cycling. Okay.
Okay. Where do you want me to start? Because there is an entire massive world of cycling that I feel like most Americans don't know about because it's not a huge sport here. I'm sure every European under the sun knows everything about cycling because it's huge over there. It's like football and baseball over there is cycling. So where would you like me to start?
Well, let's start with you, right? How, like, for example, like, how did you get into the sport?
Okay. So a long time ago, back in grad school, I won't say how long ago it was because that will
no. Let's not get into that. No, absolutely not.
That will age me. I was into triathlons because I had been a runner throughout high school and a little bit in college, did track and field for a year and then decided I'd rather go study abroad. So that didn't last long, but I kept running. And then I decided to get into triathlons in grad school because I had swam a little bit when I was younger. But in my first few triathlons, I found out that I was really good at cycling. And I did not know that you could race just bikes. Because, like I said, it's not a big thing here in America.
True.
And so I found a cycling club at the University of Oklahoma, which is where I was going to grad school. Met a bunch of awesome people who really helped me get into the sport and just started riding with local groups around Oklahoma and at the university. Did some collegiate racing, raced collegiate nationals my first year, and then it just took off from there. And I loved it so much, never looked back, just kept growing in the sport for, I don't know, the better of 10 years or so.
Wow.
Yes. So it all started in grad school.
So you're just like, yep, we're just going to go ahead and, I'm just going to pick up a bike and then, I'm really good at this.
Yeah, and what's funny is that my parents didn't think that I would be sticking with this sport because it is so just not a huge thing in America. So they didn't want to help me purchase a bike at the time because I was a, poor grad student basically, or an undergrad.
You need a bike for?
Yeah, and so I used my dad's kind of cruiser style bike for like my first couple of races, and then when they saw I was actually decent at it, then I got my first bike off of eBay, which was too big for me. I didn't know anything about bike sizing and just rode it till I figured out the sport and got different bikes throughout the years that actually fit me a little bit better, that I could race
That's insane. That is also really good. Like, I mean, like if they were going to be making a movie, and I was like, "Yep, I just started with a cruiser bike, and then off we went." That's how
Oh
it
yeah.
started.
Yeah, it was funny when I rolled up with that bike at the triathlon. People were looking at me like, this girl has no idea what she's doing.
Oh my god! But hold on. So you did triathlon, but did you ever do duathlons?
I did a couple.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Yeah. I did triathlons for a couple of years. I did two half Ironmans. I did some duathlons, triathlons of various distances.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did a few of those.
So the half Ironman is the 70.3, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
Aha, look at me.
Yes.
I like.
Everyone who's into the Ironmans are very into it, but I did it. I wasn't as so into it as maybe some of the other triathlete communities. I did not get the Ironman tattoo on my leg. We'll just
Oh
we'll just say that.
wow. Oh god. See, that's it. You're out of the cult already.
I know I was out of the culture at that point.
Yeah. So it's like triathlons and then like CrossFit. Like that's what they're saying about those two sports. It's like it's very
Mhm.
cult like. Like once you're in, you are in.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Very true.
Uh, so let me ask you this then. All right, so right, you're doing your triathlons, you're doing your duathlons and all that stuff, and like
Mhm.
you get your first bike, which didn't fit for you. Which also, by the way, I did find out later on in life the same thing that like you got to get properly fitted for a bike because if you don't, you're going to be suffering.
Correct.
But how
Mhm.
did you like? How did you get discovered technically? I guess that's my question is like, to go into being a professional, semi-professional athlete.
Mhm. So back in Oklahoma, when I was living in Oklahoma City, I was on a team called DNA Racing that was a really
Mhm,
well-known team kind of throughout the Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas area. And it was mainly a men's team, but we had a small women's team. And I have to say that the guys on that team and just the people who would ride with the team and the community really helped me develop a lot of my core skills as a cyclist and helped train me from being, a beginner, what we call category 4 cyclist, all the way up to category 1, 2 cyclist, which is more of like the pro fields.
mhm,
And once I got to that point, it wasn't long after that that we moved to South Carolina.
mhm.
And I no longer had this awesome team that I was a part of. And I was desperate to find another really good team to ride with. And so I went to a lot of the local races around here where I had stalked some of the really good women cyclists online to figure out where they were going to be racing. So
There
that
I'm going. Yeah.
yes, I'm going. I want to meet these girls. I want to meet these teams. And I want to go and beat these girls so that they ask me to be on their team.
I,
And that's exactly what I did. I There was a couple of races. It came down to like a field sprint out of a smaller breakaway group, and I just made sure to make my stance and then talk to them afterwards, and it went from there. I just got on a team that I stayed on for a few years after that.
that's awesome. You're like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna show you. Watch me. Who's
Try to.
the alpha? Here I go.
Try to, yeah.
Try to. You succeeded.
Yeah. Oh, it was a good time.
That's awesome. I love that. So I remember because I'm going to ask you a question here, but I remember one time when, by the way, I don't know if you guys know this. Well, I didn't say this, but Katie and I, we used to work together at another company, right? Katie left before me. I left afterwards. But I remember in one of the trips that I went down to, I think we were doing one of the events.
Mhm.
You brought your bike with you.
I did.
I remember that, and then you're like, "No, I can't eat. I gotta eat a certain amount of food that I have to eat, and all this other stuff." And I was like, "And then I gotta go because I gotta go in and get on my bike, and I gotta train." I remember that very vividly.
Mhm.
You had it in
Mhm.
the back of your car seat in your car.
Yeah. Yep. I
That
had it in the back seat of that company car because they wouldn't allow me to put a bike rack on it.
which
So
was
I took the
hilarious. I
wheels
don't
off
understand.
and shoved that thing in the car because it was a small car, but I made it work.
It was a very small car,
Yeah.
and I can't. Why would they not let you put a bike rack? It's beyond me.
I don't know. It seems
It,
silly.
hey, right. You know what? It's one of the many things about that place. Anyways,
Yeah.
um, all right. You decided, okay, so I'm gonna go and how you say it, suck these girls, and I'm gonna get them to know me. They're gonna become my BFS forever, because
Mhm.
we're gonna be on a team. So did it happen? Like, how long did it take for you to go from racing against them to racing with them as a team?
It took two specific races where I was racing by myself, just in a blank kit.
Mhm.
And one of them was a circuit race, which is where you're on a smaller course that you do multiple laps around. So it was like a 12.5 mile course, if I remember right, that we
Mhm.
did 4 or 5 times. And then another one was a criterium race, which I like to call NASCAR on bikes. This high speed cornering, shoulder to shoulder, like
Oof.
on a really small circuit, usually within a downtown area. It was in North Carolina, like a half a mile circuit, that I made the break with these girls. I did not win that race though, but I at least stayed with them. And then after that, uh, the following year is whenever they asked me to be on the team.
Nice. All right. So
Mhm.
let me ask you this. Let's backtrack a little bit because you said something and I
Okay.
want to make sure that I explain it to everybody. Um, I know what the term is, but what is a kit?
Oh yes. So a kit is your cycling race suit,
Yeah. So
and it can be a one piece, it could be a two piece, but it's skin tight lycra basically to be as aerodynamic as
yep.
possible.
Gotcha.
Hmm.
I seen that. It's like, when I'm seeing the Tour de France, and because this is, what I watch every year, is they have these very skin tight, like, I mean, it is tight. Like, I mean, it
Tight.
is a part of you.
Yes.
And what I did not really understand until recently when I bought my couple of bike shorts is the padding on the shorts.
Hmm.
Thank you, Jesus, for those things.
The chamois. Yes.
Yeah, let me tell you. Because I was never used to that, and then when you start cycling and then you don't have that, it's not fun.
It's not fun. The chamois saves your life. And if you have a properly fitted bike saddle, which you sit on, is also will save your life. And the more uncomfortable the saddle looks, usually the more comfortable it is.
Which is wild to me.
It is, yeah. You don't want to be sitting on this big, cushy saddle. You're going to be rubbed in all the wrong places. You got to have a saddle that's skinnier and usually a little bit firmer, so it's only hitting your sit bones.
I never knew that, and
Hmm.
I'm watching, and I'm like, everybody's like, "Oh, no, no, you need this big thing because you want comfort," and then everyone's like, "No, you really
That's what the
don't."
chamois is for, not the
Yeah,
saddle. Yeah.
that's it's see, thank you, teaching me
Yeah.
things here. I like that. Okay, so you did that, and then you described two races, right? Which
Hmm.
one of them was a criterium, and the other one was a circuit.
Yep.
How many racing types are here in the US that people can,
Yeah.
watch?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have all kinds of racing. I would say the most well-known race that's truly like what we would say American style racing is criterium racing,
Mhm.
which I said is like NASCAR on bikes. It's in usually an hour to 90 minutes, full gas, like high speed, high cornering or high speed cornering, elbow to elbow, lots of elbow checking. And then there is circuit racing, which, like I said before, a
Mhm.
longer circuit that you do multiple times
Mhm.
within a race. There's a time trial,
Yep.
which is just point A to point B as fast as you can.
And that's a
Um,
solo one, correct? Or
yes,
the
that
team
is.
one? You can do two.
You can do a team time trial, but most time trials around here are going to be solo
Mhm.
on a time trial bike, similar to like what a triathlete would do in a triathlon. And then you have a road race, which for the women at the pro level here in America, usually your races are anywhere from 50 to 80 miles,
Mhm.
and it could be one large loop. It could be maybe a couple of loops, but that usually involves a lot more mixed terrain, a lot of climbing here in America, and some
Mhm.
of the bigger road races that we would go to. But those are the main races that you can do here.
Gotcha. All right. Then the average speed on the stage one. What's the average speed for that one?
For like a road race,
Yeah, a road race.
depends on the terrain. So
Okay.
if you're mountain climbing, because there's a race not far from here in the Carolinas where
Mhm.
you climb up like a 2,500-foot climb at the very end of the race. And that might be a little bit different than a road race that has a bunch of rolling terrain. But in the women's pro field, in a road race, you're always going to be averaging at least over 20 miles an hour. If the course is more flat, I mean, a lot of times it's been upwards of 23 miles an hour. Yeah, for, like I said, 50 to 80 miles. So it really depends on the terrain, but it can also depend on the wind.
Yeah, that's insanity to me though, because like I
Yeah.
can average maybe 10 to 12 miles an hour on my bike. And I just threw up when you said, oh, 20 to 23 miles an hour is on average for
The
80
big
miles.
pack makes a difference too. There's a
Oh,
lot of
yeah,
people. Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
God, you have done something that I'll never achieve, and I'm so jealous right now, just so you know. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. What about the NASCAR on two wheels?
Yes.
How fast do
Criterion.
you use the criteriums?
Yes.
How fast do you usually go there?
Oh gosh, I would say the fastest crit race I did was one in Chicago where they have 10 days of crit racing back to back, and uh, pancake flat, and the women's field averaged pretty darn close to 26 miles an hour. And the
Jeez,
men's field
gosh.
was averaging like 30 miles an hour,
Oh
up pretty
my
close. I mean,
god.
some of the course, if it's not technical, and meaning, there's not a lot of tight cornering, it's
Y
kind of open, super flat, and you have a group of like 50 girls that are racing. I mean, you can fly on a bike. You can fly.
Oh my god.
I would not say that was normal. You're going to be averaging more 23, 24 miles an hour on other
Still.
quick courses. It's still fast, but that one I specifically remember being particularly fast.
Yeah, I mean, it's super fast, first of all, and then second of all, it's like you crash and
Yes.
there's not a lot of padding. There's no padding because you got
No.
your kit on.
Hmm.
But oh Lord have mercy.
I don't know if you can see.
Oh,
I've got a plate and 12 screws in this wrist and my forearm from a pretty horrific crash I had 12 days before my wedding because I was dumb enough to race
oh,
right before my wedding.
right before your wedding.
Not smart. I don't recommend it anyone do that. Don't do it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was interesting.
With and you on walking down the aisle on a cat with a cast on?
Nope. I walked into an orthopedic surgeon a couple of days after the race when they actually were open
Yeah.
again and told him my situation. He felt so bad for me. He did surgery on me that same day, promised I'd be in a removable cast the day before my wedding, and I was. So I didn't have to wear
Oh,
one at my. But still, I don't recommend racing that close to a big event in your life.
no.
Just
Oh
don't do it.
God. My wife just had surgery on her wrist.
Ugh,
So, like, I mean, we're going through because she has a plate,
it's
on her
not
wrist.
fun.
No.
Not fun.
Yeah,
No.
she's like all the PT that she has to do and all that, and you are like I mean, how long did it take you from that injury to get back on a bike? Because I mean, that's that's a lot of stress put on your wrist and your forearm.
Yeah, I mean, I probably rode before I was supposed to, but I
Of
would ride the
course.
trainer inside. And once I got in a cast where it was just my forearm
Mhm.
and my thumb, and my hand was kind of like this, I could grab
Just
my handlebar.
yeah.
So I rode outside. Didn't feel great for a while, but still did it. And I think I got my cast off maybe 6 weeks later
Oh,
or
wow.
so. Yeah, the tan line from that was hilarious when I got that cast off.
So you get a tan line from your kit and then a tan line from your wrist.
Yes, I
That's
looked ridiculous.
that's wild. Could
Yeah,
I mean, good for you. That's some dedication right there. I
yeah,
love it. Uh, okay. So you said, before we started recording, is that you were not considered a pro. You're considered a semi-pro
yes,
here in the United States. And I
yes.
want you to explain to me and to the people that are listening here, why were you considered a semi-pro instead of a professional athlete when you're doing all of this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, most of the teams here in America, when you are racing at what they call the pro category 1, 2 level, a
Hmm.
lot of those women would really be considered more of like a semi pro because we aren't paid a salary,
Okay.
but we have all of our travel costs paid for. We have race support that do everything for us, meal prep for us, drive in your team car during the race so they can give you feeds and food. Mid race, you get all of your gear given to you, bikes, wheels, tires, kits, nutrition, anything you can think of
Mhm.
was given to us on the team, but we weren't paid a salary. Now, if you are to be on what they would call a UCI Continental team or a UCI World Tour team, that is a step above where our team was at here in America. And those athletes are given salaries and also have all the other benefits that we had plus more. So
Mhm.
those would be considered like your pro athletes, whereas most people here in America you could consider more semi pro.
Gotcha. Okay. That's pretty cool because you still got a lot of gear for
Oh
that.
yeah, I mean it was awesome. I'm not gonna lie, because if you get all your flights paid for, staff to really take care of you, like you are a real pro athlete, just without the paid salary. I mean, it was phenomenal. And we traveled all over the U.S. Our team got to race in Europe. I mean, we went to cool
Oh,
places. I mean, we had a great time on our team.
that's cool. I'm
Yes.
sure you racked up a lot of mileage, though, frequent flyer miles.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was fun.
Good. All right. All right. So let me ask you this then. All right. So, and then we'll go into nutrition here in a little bit here, but and then the training and all that. But so you're the day of well, I guess I should back up because obviously training comes first and then the day of the race.
Yeah.
Like, what does that training look like when you made the team, you're being asked, what are the demands? Because I'm sure not everybody lived close enough to you to be part of the team, or am I assuming
Right.
incorrect?
Yep. Our team, so it was technically based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, but we had athletes that were in North Carolina, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, Colorado, Minnesota. Throughout, we had girls from various places throughout the years that I was on the team. And our team was more of a Tour de France style racing team. So
Okay.
we were mainly focused on stage racing, which that's what the Tour de France is. It's a long 21-day stage race.
Mhm.
We would do some criterium racing too, just to it's good exposure, we'll say, here in America if your team shows up to these big crit races. But we were mainly focused on stage racing, so the training for that is going to be different than
A
teams that
criterion.
were, focused on criterium racing. And the training for each athlete is going to vary based on what your strengths are. So for me, I was a sprinter on the
Mhm.
team.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yes, I had a decent sprint whenever I was not sick, which happened frequently, sadly, the last like 2 years that I was on the team. So my weaknesses were climbing
The
and
mountains,
just
yeah.
long power. So just on the pedals, nonstop, as much power as you can for an extended period of time. And that is necessary at a lot of the stage racing because we do a lot of climbing in
Mm.
stage racing. And you also have to be decent at time trialing in order to make the time cut. You can't be really slow and make it through each stage, just like in the Tour de France. So a lot of my training was focused on what we call functional threshold power, which is the total power you can output for an hour, or it's like 95% of what you can output over a 20-minute period. And I tried to increase my functional threshold power and therefore my ability to climb
Mhm.
as well as I could. And then I would, also do sprint training so that I wouldn't lose my sprint whenever the team would need me for that. Because
Yeah.
there are some stages that are sprint stages, and I would do my best that I could for the team. But a lot of my training would be focused on climbing and threshold power.
Gotcha. Okay,
Mhm.
so and correct me, if at any point here. So a lot of the teams that obviously you want to win the whole race, but you concentrate on
Right.
trying to win as many stages as possible.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Yes.
and every stage is different, right? Because you can one of them is be designed for a sprinter, another one it's a climbing stage. So there's a lot of stages in racing.
Yes. Yes, that's correct. And um, so depending on the composition of your team,
Mhm.
you could be a team that is going for stage wins, individual stage wins, because maybe you don't have the best chance to go all in to try and win what's called the general classification or the overall winner of the entire, let's
Mhm.
say, 3 or 4 day stage race. Or you could be a team that maybe has a star individual or a few star individuals that do have the capability of winning the general classification.
Mhm.
And so you may strategically win certain days, or especially the time trial, because that's always key if you're going to win the general classification. And your entire team may be backing that one rider who could win the overall race, and you could be racing a totally different race in that stage race compared to a different team who's just out to win stages.
There's so much
Yes, it's a big
planning.
team sport, very
Yeah.
much a team sport.
Yeah, people don't understand that. Like, well, I didn't at first. I'm like, why is this dude like, all the way, like he did all this work. Now he's gonna fall all the way to the back of the peloton and
Mm-hmm.
just gonna stick there for the rest of the time. And it's, to me, it was like, Mark Cavendish. Like he's the
Yeah,
one that came to mind because he's a sprinter. Uh,
yeah.
and like he was like in the front, they brought him up, to win the sprint stage, and then you
Mm-hmm.
just fall him so far behind on the climbing stages.
Yep. That would be me a lot of times too. Or um, I was not like a pure sprinter. I could climb decently well, and there were definitely some races where our in the last year that I was with the team, we had two girls who were phenomenal cyclists who could definitely win the GC, and they did.
Mhm,
And I would go all in for them at specific times in the race. Let's say if there was another team's GC rider who was threatening our GC rider's capability to
mhm.
win.
Okay.
Um, and I would sacrifice myself to do whatever the job was at that point. Let's say close the gap if they were breaking away from us, or sacrifice myself as much as I could up a climb for someone so that they're saving energy behind us. Um, but yeah, I mean that's truly like it's a big team sport, and people don't understand that um, how much work goes into one person winning a big stage race like the Tour de France, and the people who are off the back barely making the time cut because they went all in for them are
Mhm.
the reason why that one person is on the podium.
That's insanity.
Yeah.
That's awesome at the same time, right? Because everybody thinks like, oh, cycling, individual sport. Not really.
No.
No, it is.
Mm-mm.
It is. If you cannot, like if you don't have a good team around you, then you're done for.
You are done. Yeah. At the pro level, if you don't have a good team behind you, you're not going to go anywhere.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. All right. So let's talk about training. What is that? You said we're going to concentrate on the stage because that's what you mostly did. So talk to me like what a typical training looked like for the team.
Mm-hmm. Um, so you want to talk about like for me specifically, or when we would have like team training camp?
For so both, right? So for
Okay.
you, because I know yours was different than a lot of the other,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody had their own specific thing
Mm-hmm.
that they need to train on, and then
Mm-hmm.
when you guys got together as a team.
Yes. So a typical training week, I would say like a light training week would be 15 hours on the bike. And then a heavy training week could be over 20 hours on the bike. And um,
And you spread this out throughout the week, those
yes,
those
over
hours?
7 days.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in order for you to, or in order for me to increase my functional threshold power,
Yeah.
your aerobic capacity has to be really high. And so a lot of our training is going to be what we call zone two training, which is a relatively moderate intensity level,
Mhm.
but it helps build your aerobic capacity and your ability to move oxygen efficiently throughout your body. And then you would have, say, 2 days a week where you're doing really high intensity intervals, whether it's specifically training, for me, the functional threshold power, or working on your VO2 max, or doing sprints.
Oh,
And so you would have, you know, 2 days a week or so that were spread out throughout the week, where in between those high intensity days, you'd be riding a lot of zone two to work that your heart muscle, basically.
mhm. Interesting.
Yes.
So every day was a totally different training for you
Yeah.
just because you were working on different things.
Right. And
No,
Mondays were always my recovery day.
just an easy ride?
Easy hour. Yep.
Okay, alright. So was that plan, put together for you? Did you put that plan? Was there a coach or a team manager that put that plan together?
Yes, I had a wonderful coach, Emma, and at the time she was my coach, she raced for TIPCO and EF Education First. And
Hey, I know that.
she was the road race US national champ a few years ago. She was absolutely wonderful. She was the coach I needed because she is a climber through and through. And so she knew how to help me become a better climber, which is why I loved having her as my coach. So
That's
she would plan
great.
everything out for me in this program called Training Peaks. I could log into, see what I need to do that week. I could upload my ride to it, showed me all of my stats. She could see all the stats. We could communicate back and forth in the program. And she was super key for me being able to race big stage races.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, that team is still going on, the EF, Education First. That's pretty cool. I love their
Yeah.
colors.
Yep.
That's awesome. So, like, you log in, you got your training. I was like, "All right, what do I need to do? Oh, here I
Yep.
go. I gotta do this today."
Oh, some of those workouts. I mean, I would tell her she was so mean. They were so brutal, but worth it in the end.
You're
But
like,
I
"Dude."
mean, some of them, it was almost expected that you would fail. And if
But it was done
you,
on purpose.
yes, yeah, yeah. And if you made it through, then that means the next time we just weren't going hard enough.
Got it.
And you've
So,
progressed like in your training, and so you keep upping the power. And yeah, some of them were brutal workouts.
that's funny. That's funny.
Yes.
So, it's meant to literally just, like, just beat you down. not in a bad way, but like in a way in which you would definitely have to work, and you're on your own. So, like, I mean,
Yes.
let me ask you
Yes.
this. This is something that I've always wanted to know.
Okay.
And when you guys are racing,
Hmm.
are you able to listen to music? Are you guys listening to music, or it's just straight up you and your thoughts, and then you're just racing?
Yeah. So there's no headphones allowed when you're racing. That would be super dangerous if you couldn't hear what's going on around you.
True.
There's a lot of yelling sometimes that happens in the races. A lot of not nice words you might hear. A lot of
Gotcha.
elbows getting in your rib cage sometimes to move people out of your way.
Yeah.
But I always felt that my training that Emma would give me was so hard some days that if I could do it by myself, just with my thoughts and solely focusing on how awful my legs were feeling or how my heart felt like it was going to beat out of my chest, if I could do it myself, then when I'm in a race around a
Yeah.
group of people and my adrenaline is through the roof and I'm thinking about so many other things other than just my legs wanting to fall off, I always felt like I could perform really well and do anything I was doing in training plus more at a
Okay,
race.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah. Because there's a lot going on in those pelotons sometimes.
I was just gonna say, because like I've always wanted to know exactly what happens in those pelotons. Because I go, you
Yeah.
watch it on TV, and you watch like when you go to a race and you see them, and like what is actually going on. Obviously, there's a lot of in a not so nice and in a nice way. Just there's some uh, nudging
Mhm.
out of the
There
way.
is. But there's some nice talk too, because sometimes in the long races when you're on a super flat section, there's not a whole lot going on. You're just cruising really fast and
Mhm.
no one's going to be breaking away because let's say the wind is just really inhibiting that. Or, I mean, I've had some nice conversations with friends on other teams that I hadn't seen in a while. But, when the going gets tough, sometimes that stops real fast. And if people are doing things you don't like and they're disrupting your race and you need them out of the way, then there are choice words that come out of people's mouths. Um,
Uh,
so there's
I,
both.
I would pay so much money to experience that, just to see that happening, right? Like, get the
Hmm.
out of my way.
Yeah, pretty much. A lot of F bombs. Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
it's in my vocabulary. I use that one word a lot.
Yeah.
Um, I had to watch it though, because I have a 6-year-old, and she is a human recorder,
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
so she will repeat every single thing.
I've learned I will learn that pretty soon because my girl I just had, she's 2 months old. So we're not to that stage yet, but I do know I'm gonna have to watch myself pretty soon.
But you will.
Yes.
And let me tell you, you're gonna have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, so I got a couple questions here, and I wanted to, like, what does like we talked about the training, like,
Mhm.
how do you balance the endurance, strength, and recovery? Like, what's your the that balance look like?
Yeah. So, in a typical training week, you would always have at least one recovery day, or um, if it had been, let's say, a super strenuous week beforehand in training and I had a long work week, then my coach was always wonderful of giving me an extra rest day whenever I needed it.
Okay.
Strength training with cycling probably should be happening more year round, but because the sport requires so much time investment on the bike during the season that a lot of cyclists spend most of their time strength training in the gym in the off season,
I got you.
which
Okay.
for us is, late fall through early winter. And people can get pretty heavy in the gym and spend a lot of time there. And then once your training really ramps up, then it's just a lot of on the bike strength training and less gym work.
Hmm. Okay. So it's like it tapes off as the season's about to start.
Right. Correct. For
Interesting.
most athletes.
Okay. All right. So nutrition plays a big role in your performance.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I mean, massive role, right?
Yes.
what does your a typical cyclist, in your sport, in your
Mhm,
level, what does that
mhm.
diet look like?
Okay, so I'll give you two different scenarios because they're
Okay.
kind of extreme opposites, I would say, or at least this is what worked really well for me.
Mhm.
Stage racing. So, for example, like a race we would do in Ireland every year was 6 days long, 7 stages.
Mhm.
And all of those stages, except for two, were long road race days with a lot of climbing. And if I was not intaking anywhere from 60 to 80 grams of carbs an hour while I'm racing, starting from the beginning, then I would find myself in a situation where all of a sudden you hit the wall
Oh
and
my
you
god.
run out of glycogen stores and energy stores just in your body because those types of races, the going gets real tough, like halfway through towards the end. And if you haven't been fueling properly up until then, you kind of reach the point of no return. And then that evening, we had wonderful staff on our team who would make us food, and we ate. Like, you have to eat a lot because, if you burned, let's say, 1,500 calories or 2,000 calories in a race, and you have to make up for that plus all the muscle damage that you're trying to repair overnight, and your body is continuing to burn calories till the next day. You're eating, I mean, sometimes it's almost hard to eat enough, and you really have to train your stomach over time um, before you get to race day to be able to handle that amount of food, that amount of calories, and that amount of carbs consistently for hours on time to be able to fuel yourself through races. Now, if you're doing, let's say, a 1 day crit race that's an hour long, your fueling strategy is going to be a bit different because you haven't fueled enough, right before the start or the night before, then there's really not much you can do. Let's say, you know, 45 minutes into the race and you've only got 15 minutes left. I mean, I wouldn't hardly take in many calories in just a 60-minute race because you either come prepared or not.
Yeah.
You can
At
make
that
it
point,
through
you're
or
like,
not.
yeah, you're ready or not. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like I'm fueling for the third hour that I know I'm going to be racing really hard in,
Mhm.
in a road race. I just come prepared to the start line. I might have one bottle of whatever type of fluid and electrolytes I'm intaking, and that's it for the crit race. And then
Hmm.
obviously recovering afterwards. But
Interesting.
yeah, very different fueling scenarios.
That's a lot of
It's a
like
lot.
an hour.
Yeah, it's a lot. But we had amazing nutrition sponsors where in one bottle, I could easily have 60 grams of carbs in it, and it would be
Okay.
easily digestible carbs.
Boom, boom, bam.
So
I
you're just
gotcha.
constantly drinking, always eating something, but you do have to train your stomach to be able to take in that many carbs, that much
I
food per
Yeah.
hour.
Okay. So, speaking of, and I'm sorry, I apologize ahead.
Okay.
But
Oh no.
okay, this is the part that no one, but you're in the race, you gotta go. When nature calls, you gotta go.
Yeah. I remember one race that we were doing in Vermont where it seemed like everyone in the peloton had to use the bathroom, and we took a nature break. Like, the peloton decided as a group that this was happening.
We're stopping. We're going.
Yeah, I mean, men have the ability to kind of pee off the side of their bike. Women can't really do that. But most of the time that doesn't happen. Like, you just come prepared, or you're chasing back on if you really have to stop.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I've always wondered.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
sure
a
a
good
lot of people,
question.
a lot of people wonder the same thing too. So let's be honest about that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
I mean, if you're racing for 3 or 4 hours, it's a fair question, but most of the time, like, I don't know. You just
just
come prepared.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you're burning so much calories. Yeah, like that point, you're like,
Oh,
like
you're sweating so much that no matter how much liquid I took in, some at the end of some of these long races where it was doesn't even have to be that particularly hot, but you're just working so hard, I was still felt dehydrated at the end, even though I'd had 5 bottles,
yeah.
of fluid.
Okay, I have a quick couple of questions here now, and I want to move on to your mental aspect of this because
Uh-huh.
you have to train your mind
You do.
to
Hmm.
do all of this. Like,
Hmm.
you know, like how do you handle those psychological demands of racing?
Yeah,
Because that's a lot.
it is. Cycling is, I think, uniquely psychologically hard
Hmm.
at the pro level if you're doing stage racing because it is day in and day out, and you're on the bike for, like I said, 3 or 4 hours for each of the races. And we did have a sports psychologist that
Oh wow.
helped our team 1 full year, and then for half of a year, the following year after that, that taught you how to really focus your mind away from what is happening within your body because not many sports are going to have you racing for 5 or 6 days back to back, all out
Hmm.
for many hours. And so it can wear on you if you are unable to put your mind in a positive space and try to not focus on how much your body is hurting. And for me, instead, I would focus on other small goals I would have throughout the race. So let's say I need to be on the front of the peloton at this point in the race because I'm going to work for my teammate
Right.
as much as I can. Or um, I don't know. A lot of times too, I just found that there was so much going on around me, and I
Hmm.
would try and stay away from people that I knew were super unsafe for me to
Yeah.
be around. Like I didn't want to crash.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That would take my mind away from just how hard it was. But for me too, I will never forget my coach Emma telling me to don't be afraid of big mountain climbs, like when you would get to it, because for me that was always where my mind would start to freak out because I'm just not
Hmm.
I mean, I'm not the best climber. I'm super tall. I don't weigh 100 pounds because I'm not 5'1",
Yeah.
like these small girls are going to fly past me. But she said, you can climb and you have to make them drop you. Don't just give up. You make people drop you. Like
Hmm.
you go all in. And that mindset helped me so much on big climbs
Huh.
that I was going to be with these people until they literally, like, I'm going to make you drop me. And so, small things like that were super helpful for me. But every athlete who has their own different type of mental challenges based on their strengths, I'm sure have
Sure.
a ton of different strategies to get them through hard race days.
Did you do did throughout the training and during racing and all that? Did you do any kind of meditation? Are you one
Oh,
of those that believe in meditating?
I probably should have. We had a girl on the team 1 year that was really good at it, and she would be super zen and in her own space. And she now is a phenomenal cyclist.
Really?
Yeah, she's great. She did a lot of racing in Europe, and she actually got to race the Vuelta 1 year. Um, and so she was really good at it. I never was. I probably should have tried. I was a person that's going to be jamming out to some loud music in my headphones before I got
Yeah,
into some race.
yeah, it's not for everybody, right? It
Yeah.
really isn't. So, That's
Yeah.
cool though. I mean, La Vuelta, that's a Spanish race, correct?
Yes. Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. That's
See,
correct.
I'm learning some stuff. See? Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so and just to put it into what other people don't understand as well is in normal races, not normal, I'm sorry, in professional races like in the Tour and La Vuelta and Tour Down Under and things like that, there's always a bunch of cars all the way in the back, right?
Yes.
And those are
Yeah.
your coaches and all that. Did you have that as well?
We did,
Okay.
yes. We were lucky enough to have team car, team directors, people that were just helping out the team, giving feeds. And the last year that I actually helped run the team, I was also in the team car, helping
Okay.
out our star athletes.
We're going to talk about that here in a second, but
Yes,
a lot of the strategy goes on in the car. Like you guys are there's discussion going on in the car about the strategy throughout the race of okay,
absolutely. Yep, because in a lot of the big stage races, you're allowed to have a mic in your ear, and so your team car can be talking to you.
okay,
And also, um, the different race officials that would be on motorcycles in the race, if someone on our team needed something and you're not the first car in the line of team cars, so you can't see what's going on, they're going to be communicating with us of what we need to do to help our rider.
hmm
So there's a lot going on in the team car.
interesting. So okay, all right, I like that.
Yeah.
That's see again. These are the little things that no one really knows about because you guys are. It's such a different world than a
Yeah.
normal person like myself because you guys are all superhuman. That able to do these stage races, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't do that.
And if you think about it too, if you're racing for 4 hours, you are unable to carry enough nutrition in your kit and on your bike to get you
Correct.
through that race. And so you rely on your team car to help you throughout the race.
So you have someone going back to
Absolutely.
get the
Hmm.
stuff and then come back in and then
Correct.
I got you.
Yep.
And then the drafting, right? Because like I mean you can go into cars and all that. How long is that? How long can you stay behind that one car drafting?
Yeah. So you're allowed to hop from car to car to get back up to the main peloton.
Mhm,
If you're in like the cavalcade of cars,
mhm.
then as long as you're moving up, once you're done at your team car,
Mhm.
then there's really no like set rule. You can't just, if they
Don't
see you,
stay back there, yeah.
yeah, if you're like sitting back there just taking a 5-10 minute break, you're gonna get
Yeah,
in trouble for that. But if you're moving up and they see that you're actively trying to move up, then that's all that really matters.
okay. That's pretty cool. I like that.
Hmm.
How big was your team?
So we had a team of 6 and 7 girls at one point.
Oh, wow. So
Yes.
pretty big team.
Yeah, I would say we were more of like a medium-sized team because we gave so much support with flights, kits, bikes, I mean, you name it,
Mhm.
and all the team staff and flying the team staff wherever we were going, that uh, it's expensive.
Yeah.
Cycling is incredibly expensive. And we get, the Airbnb that we'd stay at, we buy all the food, we get the rental car, the gas, I mean, you name it. And so because we wanted to operate our team as closely to a pro team as possible, we couldn't support, say, 15 or 20 girls like
Mhm.
some other teams may have. We had a smaller group of select girls that we felt could work really well together that we could fully support throughout the season.
Interesting. I like that.
Yes.
Okay. So that's actually not bad at all. Um, so technology, because that plays a big, huge part now
Yeah.
in cycling. And not
Hmm.
just technology like, electronics or anything like that, but like technology in the bike, because the bikes
Yeah.
have become so different
Yeah.
than what they used to be. They're so lightweight.
Mhm.
I know, and they may not do this in your races, but I know in some of the races, like the tour and things like that, that they actually have to put actual weights on to meet a certain weight restriction, I guess.
Yep. And I never had this problem because I ride a large bike because I am so tall. And it's naturally going to weigh more than a small bike. But some women who ride super tiny bikes would have to
Mhm.
put a weight somewhere on their bike to make it legal.
Huh.
Yeah, I did not have that problem. But a lot of road bikes these days that used to be like standard geometry with what we would call round tubing. So, you
Mhm.
know, how the bike frame were made out of round tubes. A lot of road bikes these days are made out of more aerodynamic geometry and aerodynamic tubing so
Mhm.
that, I mean, including the wheels, the tires, your handlebars, helmet, skin suit, everything is super aero and incredibly faster than technology from 10 years ago.
Mhm.
I mean, some of the road bikes are
And they're
so
carbon
aero that
fiber.
they're like almost time trial bikes with road cycling geometry. They're so
Jesus.
fast. Yeah.
And they're carbon fiber framing. Well,
Yes.
most of
Yeah.
even the wheels are carbon fiber nowadays.
Yep. They all are. If you're going to be racing like some top end uh, road bikes, everything's carbon fiber,
Yeah. God, I'm so
including
jealous.
the bottle cages, everything.
Even the
Yes,
well,
even
yeah,
the bottle cages.
you got it was all I'm sure, and even the bottle cages were designed specifically so that way it was aerodynamic, that everything fit together.
Yep, yep. Everything's aero these days. Aero is everything.
I really would like to see how an engineering team goes through the whole process of, because like I mean everything had to be fitted specifically for one, rider.
Right.
So seeing that process of like, all right, we're gonna get you as aerodynamic as we can. We need you to come into the wind tunnel and then do all this experiment.
Yeah, I wish I could have gone into a wind tunnel because me being so tall,
Yeah.
I am sure that there was something I could have tweaked on my bike to be more aerodynamic, but we weren't, our team was not lucky enough to get into a wind tunnel, but a lot of athletes do get to do that, which is super cool.
That is super cool.
Yeah.
You said something that I wanted to ask you as far as tweaking, some things here and there. Like obviously, also position. You worked on
hmm
positioning yourself a lot all the time. I'm
hmm
sure that was a constant thing to do.
hmm Yes. So it took me a while to get the most efficient position on the bike that I mean, I probably had the same position on my bike for maybe the last couple of years,
Mhm.
but if you're in a race position, I mean, you think about a lot of cyclists riding down the street, they're pretty like upright. But if you're racing, I mean, you're really down low because
Yeah,
you
you're.
want to be as this is super not
I know,
aerodynamic at
like you're just.
all.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of core, takes a lot of back muscles, takes a lot of upper body strength, like everything you can think of to be able to hold a super aero race position. So over time, I know my fit definitely changed, especially as the bikes changed. But it was something that I tweaked for a long while.
Interesting. All right, I
Yeah.
got a couple more questions for you because I'm finding this super fascinating.
Good,
If
I'm
you
glad.
Yeah, because well, I mean, let's be honest. Like a lot of people don't really get to see or hear these things nowadays. So, like they just see cycling, they're like, "Oh my god, they're super fast. They can do
Yeah,
this," but they don't know what the work that you have to put in,
right.
to get to be like, "Yep, that's a fast person."
Yep. hmm
So, so just like every sport, in my favorite sport, there was huge controversy when it comes to doping and all that. I'm sure
Oh
this is
yeah.
also a big part, a big no-no, and the things that you guys want to talk about. But doping is part of the sport as well in cycling.
hmm Yeah.
how is that managed? Is it managed at your level? And, is it noticeable? Obviously.
Yes, it absolutely is managed, because there have been some big doping controversies in cycling over the years. And, at your local races, small regional local races, there's not going to be any sort of doping control.
Yeah.
But at your big national events, if you're on the podium, you are getting tested. And they also will randomly pull race numbers for people to come and get tested. So a lot of people are being tested, and this is every day.
Hmm.
And I was at a race where the winner was found to be doping. This was,
Oh,
yeah, back in 2019, I believe. And so they do find those people. And you can also, if you have good evidence and reason to suspect that some athlete is doping, you can also report that to USA Cycling and they can do an out of competition test.
and that has happened.
That definitely has happened. Hmm. Yeah.
So
So
you
they're
got,
really trying to crack down on it.
I was going to say, you guys are also policing your own sport as well.
Yeah. Some people do.
Some
I mean,
people, some
sometimes
people are like, nah.
it's pretty noticeable, but a lot of the people that get reported to USA Cycling, this might sound bad, but it's going to be like maybe the older men that are racing in the masters category. They're just
Yeah.
still trying to live it up like you're 20. You can't race like that anymore, so you're doping.
Yeah.
Uh, and you don't have to be in the pro fields to get drug tested.
Okay. So see, now I'm going into the weeds here. So doping, what does that look like in your sport? Obviously, you have,
I did not. Yes,
no,
I,
no, no,
I
no, not you. No, but I'm talking
no.
about like, is it blood transfusions? Is it, injections? What did a lot of those people get caught with?
Oh gosh, I mean, there are so many ways that people can dope these days. And there's also ways that people could get caught doping without even realizing it. Like I found out that if you drink too many Red Bulls, you can have something in your system.
Shut up.
Um, yeah, that's technically like illegal and you could get caught doping.
Huh.
Uh, yeah, so like my husband won a big race one time where he had to go through a doping test, and they made him pee in a cup and they test for all different kinds of things.
Sure.
What they test for, I mean, I don't know everything
Who knows at this
specifically,
point?
but I mean, there's a million ways. I'm sure, like at the super world tour level, there's probably some questionable things that are going on that we don't even
Mm,
know
yeah.
is possible, like, in our world.
Oh God,
So,
what was that one cyclist from? God.
who, Lance Armstrong, the
No,
biggest
not
doper?
yeah, biggest
Oh,
doper of all time. Yeah, no, no, it was after him. He was racing with him, but oh my lord, it was from Team Astana. Oh God, what was his name? The name is escaping me now.
oh,
Then he blamed it on steak. It was a Spanish
why can't
racer.
I know, why can't I think of his name? Because we watched a documentary with him in it not that long ago.
Oh, see, I love
Uh,
documentaries.
if my husband was here, he would know. I know what you're talking about.
I know, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. There's all different ways people can try and dope in this sport. And because it's so uniquely challenging, especially at that level where you're racing for 21 days,
Yeah,
max effort at some point in all of those days, people are looking for any way to gain an advantage and trying to push the limits with things that may not be illegal at the time, but
yeah.
then at some point becomes illegal.
My God, I can't remember the name now, and it's gonna really make me mad because it's like I remember it was a Spanish guy, and then
Yeah.
he was caught doping. I can't remember his name, but I'll find it. Don't you
Yeah.
worry. Okay. So, when did you know? Right, this is the part where you're like, okay, my career is coming to
Oh, yeah. An end.
to
The
an
time has
end.
come.
Yeah, it's like it's time
Yeah.
for me to hang it up.
Yeah. Um,
Did you realize it? When did you realize it? And like, what was that? What did you go through all that when that realization finally came?
I probably should have stopped a year earlier, I will say.
Yeah.
Looking back at it now, there were a couple of things that really pushed me to decide it was time to stop and instead of racing, help manage a team. Um, the last 2 years, I I didn't realize at the time that I was racing with full blown Epstein-Barr viral infection, which um, happens from stress. And I'm
Really?
sure, yeah, the stress of cycling plus our former workplace that shall not be mentioned
Yeah.
had probably a big play into that. And so a
Yeah.
lot of race days, you know, I can't explain how awful I felt and how much harder I would have to work to output the power that I wanted. And then when I was racing the national crit race one year, I had a tachycardia event, which is where my heart spiked to like I think it was 225 is what they said in the
What?
medical tent, and they had to do some crazy things for it to my heart rate to regulate. And then I went to a cardiologist and wore a heart monitor for a while. And I mean, I basically found out that I needed to take in a lot more electrolytes because I'm just aging. I'm getting older. Like I don't function like I'm 25 anymore. And my husband and I, we also wanted to start our own family. And it's really those three things over the course of 2 years that made me realize that it was time. I had fun. I loved what I did. And I just couldn't, I started to not be able to recover as well as I used to because I was
Mhm.
just, well, it was a lot of the Epstein-Barr viral infection, but I was just
Yeah, it's just
getting
you do.
older.
At that point, it's like my body can't handle this.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun, but that's when I decided it was time to move on.
Okay, all right. So then you moved on from the participating, like as far as like the actual racing, but you really didn't move on from racing. Still, though, you were then at that point you were managing the team.
Yes, I
How
was
that work?
helping to manage the team.
How was that?
It was great. So cycling gave so much to my life
Hmm.
and enriched it in so many ways. And I've met so many wonderful people and traveled to so many cool places. And it gave me real direction in my life a lot of times when I really needed direction that I wanted to give back to the sport and continue to help up and coming athletes who wanted to
Hmm.
dabble in stage racing and really be treated as much of a as much of like a pro as we could. And
Yeah.
so I helped manage our team. I got a lot of the sponsorship money brought into the team, and I'd be in the team car helping girls. I would help any way I could in team housing afterwards. I did a lot of the social media for the team, for a lot of our sponsors, and just did whatever I could to help some girls who were super talented.
Hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Uh, Let me ask you this, and then I'll let you go because we've been here for over an hour. But I could keep
Oh,
asking
sorry.
questions. I got questions galore, girl. Don't you worry. I got questions on questions. But you say something is the sponsorship like did the sponsors approach you guys? Did you guys approach the sponsors? Like how does that work?
So we had a big sponsorship deck that we would hand out to different companies that we would love to partner with.
Hmm.
And our sponsorship deck would talk about, the team, our culture, how your investment is going to help athletes, what you're going to get out of the investment. And we would approach companies, individuals, product sponsors that we would want to be involved with. And if they were interested and saw a potential fit, then me and the team owner, Shane, were the main ones who would sit down and have sponsorship talks with them and negotiate basically what the deal would be for them to come on board to support the team.
Gotcha. And then their fancy name will go on the kit.
Absolutely. On the kit, all over social media, on our website. I mean, depending on what level of sponsorship they signed up for, or if it was a large sponsorship, because we did have some very large sponsors, we would customize a plan for them to get what they wanted out of the team as well as what we did too.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
See, again, the things that no one tells you about.
There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to get sponsors for this
Then no one knows about.
Yeah, because it takes a lot of communication before you get really big sponsors on board, because it's not as large of a sport like baseball that's just super televised and you get a lot of viewership through TV. That's not really a part of cycling,
At least
other
here in
than
the
live
US.
streams, yeah, that are for some races. So we had to become creative in ways that we would partner with our big money sponsors.
I wished it would be a lot more popular here in the US, because it's such a fascinating sport. Like I said
Mhm.
at the beginning, I said, it's like, I won't retain anything. I'm lying. Obviously, I'm a fan of this sport. I really am.
Yeah.
Because I find it so fascinating that to see these athletes that have these God-given abilities to do what I cannot do. It's simple truth. I can't. I mean,
Yeah.
I love it. I wish I could. I already have 2 bad knees. I'm already out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm done.
Yeah. Well, I tried playing softball one year and I was not very good at it. So I'm not good at baseball, softball. Like, I found I was very uncoordinated with objects coming towards my body. So I
I was
just
like, I
rode
don't
a
want it. I
bike
don't like
that I
this.
was
I don't like
on.
Give me a bike. Give me a bike. I don't
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah.
But I wish that a lot of these cycling events were not behind a paywall, right?
Yeah.
So that way people can enjoy it, because I mean,
Mhm.
you go to Europe and then it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
I know. I know. The investment in Europe, but also just the cost of racing in Europe is significantly less than the cost of racing in the
True.
US.
Because of the popularity, right? Here in the
Yeah.
US, it's like, this is an elite sport. You're gonna have to pay for this.
Well, and it seems like when we were in Europe, the communities where the races are happening just really get behind the sport and the race and
Mhm.
help make it happen. Whereas here in America, it's like, hey, you got to pay up for us to make this happen. So it's a totally different culture in Europe than compared
Mhm.
to America.
One of these days, we'll get
I
there.
know,
Well,
hopefully.
yeah, I know, right? One of these
Yeah.
days. I still have hope that we can. Um, so are you done with that part of the world now? Have you just hung it up? You're retired? You're done with?
I mean, I couldn't ride while I was pregnant, and
No,
just
yeah,
had
that's a
my
little.
baby, and so I have ridden the trainer a few times now that I'm able to, and I would like to do some gravel racing again whenever I can, whenever my daughter's a little bit older and I get a little bit more freedom.
Yeah, good
Road
luck with that.
racing, yeah, I'm probably not going to do much road racing. Gravel racing is like a party on dirt. It's super fun style of racing, and it's not quite so serious.
Okay.
It's also not quite so dangerous.
But
So
but that's the thing. People think I've seen it and it looks fun, you
it is,
know.
yeah, yeah. I've done some gravel racing. It's very fun, and if you crash, I mean, typically your crash is not going to be nearly as bad as in a road race or a crit race. There's a lot of dirt, a lot of grass.
Yeah.
I mean, there can be some awful crashing, but
Yes.
I would love to do that, maybe a couple of years in the future, but I'm not done riding. When I can get outside and ride again, I'm definitely going to.
Love it. Love it. All right. Is there anything that I haven't asked you? Because I think I've asked you a lot of questions here, and we could be here for another hour because I have a whole bunch more. Um,
Yeah, I would just say if you are listening to this podcast and you are in a city where you have a criterium race that is near you, because they do happen all over the US all summer long, go to it. They are so fun. There's loud music usually. The announcers are great. They're funny. There's always beer.
I'm waiting for
And
that.
it's like I said, it's like NASCAR on bikes or a spandex rodeo, like a lot of people call it. And
What?
it's super fun to watch. They go all day long with various levels of racing throughout the day, with the pros racing last. I promise you, you will have fun watching it, and you'll be surprised at what you will witness, especially towards the end of the race when people are going all out to win. So just go see it if you see that there's a criterium or a bike race near you.
I think there's actually one here in Raleigh, North Carolina. So there's that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and there's one in oh gosh, I don't think Winston-Salem is that far away from you guys, right? Because
No, 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 no.
there's a big one there at Winston-Salem too.
This Winston-Salem from me is about, I want to say about an hour and a half, 2 hours from here.
Yeah,
So
I mean they have a huge race there.
do they?
Yes.
I was like, yes, I do know. I've been there.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Uh, okay. Thanks so much for doing this, Katie.
absolutely.
Where can people find you on socials if they want to follow you? Because I know you got your own business going on right now. So actually, you know what? What is your business now?
I currently run an Airbnb that
Nice.
we own. Yes, here in Columbia, South Carolina.
All right. So there you go.
Yes,
You are very busy. You're a
very
mom
busy.
and you're running your own business. That's awesome. I love that. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Yep.
And I don't know, for the people that are listening to this podcast, I want to ask you guys now. I've done tennis, I've done cycling. What is the next sport that you guys want me to look into so I can interview them and so I can learn more about other sports other than your typical basketball, football, baseball? Because I mean, there's so many sports out here in the US
So
that
many.
I know, right? I kind of want
Mhm.
to have someone who does uh not tennis. I already did tennis. Maybe golf, or pickleball. You know, people.
Swimming, because we have
So
so many
oh,
Americans that are good at swimming.
it's true story. That is true.
Yeah.
Skiing.
Yeah, that too. Uh-huh.
So there you go. See, we're going to get some people on this podcast that are other sports. So again, thank you, Katie, and for you guys on the podcast. If you want me to look at any other sport, put it in the comments. Make sure you let me know. Otherwise, make sure you're following me on all of the socials. Dad had 216, or look up for Dad Hat Chronicles as well as on YouTube. And we will see you guys on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.